After a few-week hiatus, Ringside Rumble Radio is back with a lot to talk about, my friend. Anthony the Ant-Man alongside Keith Logan, the Loganator, and my friend. So much going on in the world today, but the big word going around, delete.
Brother Nero! How are you, my friend?
I am doing swell.
Just swell?
Just swell.
I'm doing all right.
So much going on in the news since we've last been on in the wrestling world that we did not get into. We apologize for that brief break that we needed.
Mm-hmm. Much needed.
But Roman Reigns, that's about, what I'd say like an hour after we finished our last show a couple of weeks ago, Roman Reigns was suspended.
And then he apologized on Twitter that it was his fault. He takes full responsibility. And then they decide to go with Rollins, deciding to kind of use that as a storyline, so to speak.
Well, he got the big scoop in the Rollins report.
Mm-hmm.
He got the big interview with Roman Reigns and a little bit of a comedy segment of an interview that went on, I guess, a few weeks earlier. I guess probably after Roman Reigns won the championship.
Yeah.
And he just started asking questions, and those answers were taped. So it was a little funny segment that we had going on there. But it's still, the triple threat is still on tap for Battleground in a couple of weeks as Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, the World Heavyweight Champion, and Seth Rollins get in it at Battleground for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Do you think this hurts his character? I know he's like the big stock in Vince McMahon, but now that they were pushing him as the next John Cena, how can you really have him as the next John Cena now? Because, hey kids, I got suspended because of the drug policy.
Well, they're putting it all out there, which I like. They're making it a part of the storyline, which I'm pretty sure once he comes back, we get that heel turn, hopefully, if they do it correctly. So, boy, wrong time to be falling in for one of those, and that's something that John Cena would never do.
No, not at all. Especially now with the whole draft coming next week. It's, but he'll be back for the draft, correct? No, I don't even think he'll be back.
I think he'll be back for the pay-per-view. It's weird, though. Like, why have the draft before the pay-per-view? Why not have this Battleground this weekend? I don't get it.
Yeah, because then it's still considered a full company pay-per-view, I guess. So
the last full one?
And then after that, one is SmackDown, and then the other one's Raw, and only the big ones, I believe, like SummerSlam will be the full roster, both Raw and SmackDown. So
the funny thing is, I just went on WWE.com, and the main event is not listed under the Battleground title. They just added the New Day versus the Wyatt family, which we will get into later. They have The Miz taking on the number one contender who won the Battle Royal, which we'll also get into a little later.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll have Rusev versus Zack Ryder.
Oh, man.
For the United States Championship. So Battleground is starting to take shape, but I found it a little interesting that the main event was not listed on there. I don't know if they are going to go with Roman Reigns, but we do know next week that we're getting Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins for the championship on Raw.
The only thing I can think of with this that they're not listing it is maybe they have to test him again if he doesn't pass. Maybe that could be the reason why. You know, you have the 30 days. Maybe you have to be tested after the 30th day or something like that. I don't know how their plan works. I don't know how the wellness policy works. But that's the only thing I could think of. And they're covering their tushies, so to speak, because in case he can't pass again, then your main event is pretty much squashed.
Yeah. Yep. So.
But what about the club and John Cena? That seems to be heating up quite a bit.
It has heated up because of the introductions of Enzo and Cass to the feud, and it's kind of given new life to John Cena. If you saw on Monday Night Raw, I've never seen in probably about 10 years the fans chant for John Cena like they did on Monday Night Raw. And I think it's a part of who he's been paired with. Pairing him with Enzo and Cass might have been just the right move to put him over. And Enzo and Cass are so over right now that, just having John Cena on that team just works. It's not like when you put the Usos with Roman Reigns that they're all going to get booed. And no, people love Enzo and Cass.
But they seem to be kind of out of the tag team division picture, I guess you could say. Now they seem to be doing all these 3 tag matches, triple tag team matches.
Doesn't it make sense, though? If they're not going to be in the tag team championship picture, it makes sense to just put them in this huge feud that they're in.
Or also, do you think they're kind of slowing down the tag team division until the draft and seeing what teams go where and then start a new feud kind of deal?
Yeah, they might be. We still don't even know if they're going to be drafted as tag teams or not.
I hope they are, because if they're not, I think it's just going to be the same as the last draft umpteen years ago. So I that's how I feel on that.
I just hope that, the tag teams get drafted as teams and not as...
It's like, Enzo, you're going to Raw, and Cass, you're going to SmackDown. And then there goes that team.
They kind of did kill the tag team division had been in trouble for a while, but once the draft came, it totally killed the division. Putting random people together just for the sake of tagging up made no sense whatsoever, and they had suffered for it for such a long time. So now that they finally have tag teams, and I feel like now that they have all these tag teams and all these women in the division, they don't know what to do with them.
No, it's like saturated right now.
Yeah, and they get a little bit of time. They get put in these stupid segments like the poor vaudevillains who can't even get out of their own way right now.
Well, I wonder if that's a little throwing them down in the basement type of deal because of what happened with that match with when they took on Enzo and Cass.
I don't think freak accidents happen all the time, and to Vince McMahon knows this, Triple H knows this. It would be really dumb to just throw someone under the bus. I mean, he did get really hurt, but it happens. Stuff like this happens.
Oh. So.
Well, the draft is coming up.
Are you looking forward to the draft, or are you kind of on the fence about the draft?
No, I'm looking forward to the draft. I as long as they don't mess with the tag teams is my biggest concern.
See, I'm kind of on the fence with this whole draft because they screwed it up once before. Who's to say they're not going to screw it up again? You basically, I don't want to see guys moving from one show to the next type of deal. Like how you had back when the first draft took place. And like, oh, Randy Orton's a free agent. He was on SmackDown last week. Now he's on Raw interfering in a match. I don't want to see that at all. If you're on one show, stay on the one show. If something happens, an injury, then do some storyline with a trade purpose or something like that. Thoughts?
The hierarchy in the WWE is smart. But also, it wouldn't fail me to suggest that they would go back to the well and fail because they've done it so many times. They've teased us and teased us and teased us, and then at the end of the day, it's crap sometimes. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go back to the old way they used to do the draft, and everyone just got tired of it, and then they threw it out the window. They've done that before. They've done this with storylines before.
Yeah.
That didn't work, and they've wasted time with the Roman Reigns and I mean for a little while John Cena as well, but it's like they don't want to change their could with status quo because no one's challenging them right now, and we'll just have to see what happens. We know that there are commissioners now. Stephanie McMahon will be the commissioner of Monday Night Raw, and Shane McMahon, to no surprise, will be the commissioner of SmackDown. It makes sense to put him on SmackDown. We thought it all along because, SmackDown needs that oomph.
But don't they have to pick their own commissioners for next week?
No, they have to pick general managers.
So that's next week.
Yes. I think that's a smart idea because now Stephanie and Shane don't have to be on the show every week.
Correct.
We don't have to see promos at the beginning of the shows like we didn't see this week on Raw. We went straight to a Battle Royal, which is a nice change of pace.
Not 20 minutes of blah, blah, blah in the ring.
Not 20 minutes of, not 20 minutes of blah, blah, blah going on in the ring. But, yeah, Shane and Stephanie don't have to be on every week. They can have their general managers. Now it is who will be these general managers.
But the one thing I'm concerned about, though, is you still have Raw 3 hours, and now you're going to have a whole bunch of wrestlers moving to just exclusively on SmackDown, which is 2 hours. How are you going to fill that 3 hour airtime? Are you going to throw in crap with just somebody talking for 20 minutes like we've seen before, or are you actually going to continue doing starting off with a Battle Royal, starting off with a woman's title match or an intercontinental match, something like that to get the audience, pull them in and keep them intrigued and interested for those 3 hours every Monday night?
It's called giving the tag teams and giving these women a chance to get time and airtime, because they give them about 5 to 10 minutes with certain segments, even shorter sometimes with the women. Now you can pace some storylines out. You can have some storylines, be longer than they are, and not enough. We don't need talking. We don't need all that to be a part of the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw that we're getting. I think that it's going to remain 3 hours because for these two reasons, from 8 to 10 will probably be, the John Cena's of the world because you have the kids.
Yeah.
Then once it's 11 o'clock, the 10 o'clock hour, the 9 to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock hour, you're going to get the adult portion of the Monday Night Raw.
Almost like the old school when it was Monday Night Raw and then went to the War Zone type of deal. So, but the only thing I can think of is, do you think more people will be called up from NXT? I think there's a lot of guys they could bring up because now that they're going out and they're recruiting and they have all these cruiserweights that they're having to the Cruiserweight Classic, why not, after that's over, move them over to NXT and kind of have NXT as like a cruiserweight type of developmental addition, I guess you could say, and then have some of these bigger guys that are well known on TV that people have heard of, like the Samoa Joe, the Austin Aries, move them up to the roster, and let's see what they're capable of doing as well.
Well, the cruiserweights are not going to be touched right now. The cruiserweights, they're doing the tournament right now, the Cruiserweight Classic, which actually is this week.
Mm-hmm. But I'm saying
after NXT.
After the Cruiserweight, would you sign some of those guys and maybe bring them into NXT?
They're doing something totally different with that. If you watched the bracketology on the WWE Network last week, Triple H, went on saying that this is not a one-time deal, that they're going to, see how this one goes and then, move on forward with it. I don't think cruiserweights, there are people in NXT that are ready to come up here. You're not going to just take someone from the cruiserweights that have not been in the WWE and just throw them here when there's a Finn Balor and a Shinsuke Nakamura sitting at NXT.
Yeah.
You're not going to just bring these cruiserweights up who people may know them from the indie scene, but how many people really, if you throw Shinsuke Nakamura up here, how many fans really know? Because now you're getting the fair weather fans of the WWE. Mm-hmm. You don't have that, indie background, the people who really intently watch the WWE. You're not getting those fans watching this show. You don't get them watching Raw. That's why, when people know of AJ Styles, because one, of course he was in the indie scene, but he was also in TNA. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing for fans to watch on TV. So people know who AJ Styles are. People know who a Samoa Joe is. And Samoa Joe's still sitting there with the title, but he's still sitting there.
Yeah, but he could bring ratings because, A, he can wrestle, B, he's good on the mic, and people know who he is. Why not bring him in after you're doing this whole draft? Because there are going to be holes that need to be filled.
It's just, you don't want to bring them up and then the fans don't